right, let me just check one more thing and then I'll get started. All right, it's live. Perfect.
All right.
We are live on Facebook. I'm gonna be monitoring chat so I can see what everybody's asking. Anyway, welcome to the Out of the Fast Lane podcast. I am your host, Brady Hauser. On today's show, we have 410 sprint car driver Parker Price Miller here with us. Parker, first of all, I appreciate you coming on the show, and how's everything going with you today?
It's been pretty good. Yeah, Brady reached out to me probably a few weeks ago. We've been trying to figure out a good time to do this, and I've always been free. I'm really free almost every night. Just kind of like always space things. And finally, he got a hold of me today. He's like, "Let's do it tonight." So it worked out, and yeah, glad to be on the show.
Absolutely. Just a couple things I want to add in here quick. This podcast, of course, sponsored to you by Parts Companies LLC and Swagger Factory Apparel. Get all your racing apparel there. You know, fire suit, shoes, helmets. They do it all over at Swagger Factory Apparel, so go check them out. Two other things I wanted to add in. I want to send my condolences out to the family of Ken Block. We lost Ken over the weekend, and he was well known in the racing and motorsports world and gone way too young. And we all are going to miss him. And then I also want to send out my thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin and his family as he's going through some tough times after his injury in the football game. And we wish him the best and all of his teammates and the Bills, Buffalo Bills organization, the best during this situation. But besides all of that, on a positive note, it is now 2023. Happy New Year, everybody! I hope everybody had a Happy New Year, a Merry Christmas, all that. And now it's racing season. As crazy as it sounds, I know Parker. We can talk about this in a
Yep.
second. We're getting ready to go for the 2023 season. I got to ask you, ready to go?
We're getting there. We got cars built, just some odds and end things keeping us from being done. But yeah, first sprint car race will be February 4th and 5th in Georgia. So with the All Stars, and then I'm actually running Chili Bowl uh, this coming week. So we test on Sunday, and then my prelim night's Wednesday. So my racing season starts in a week.
hmm So getting ready to go for the Chili Bowl, it's kind of one of the holy grails in racing. How do you prepare for a race like this?
Just another race. I mean, when I was younger, I mean, I'm still young, but when I was, 16, 17, I would get, worked up and, almost probably put too much pressure on myself and, didn't have the best results when doing that. So I just got to treat it like another race and go and have fun. For me, midgets and Chili Bowl are just kind of like a one-off deal for me. I race sprint cars full time, so getting to do something different is always fun. And if I don't do great, it's not in the world, but at the same time, I'm a competitor and I want to go there and try and do my best. And I'm in a pretty good car this year. I'm driving for Mark Cooper and Spike Chassis, the house car. Um, and I feel like all the midgets I've drove have been really, really small cars. Like I just feel like I'm in a really small space. And this is a car that Donnie Schatz used to drive, and it's built a little bit bigger. So I feel like I'm in a sprint car. So hopefully I'll feel a little bit more at home.
And I think it's a record-breaking year, over 300 and something entries for this year's Chili Bowl. And I mean, you got the best of the best coming in. The competition level at the Chili Bowl seems like it's always tough every year because they're only taking what, like 25, 26 drivers into the A main. How much pressure and like how challenging is that for you going into that racing against Larson and Rico and all these guys that have won Chili Bowls in the past?
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean,
Oh,
you got to run top two on your prelim night to lock in, and then say you run third, you're starting on the front row of the B main of one of the B mains. I mean, and those B mains are 25 laps. Anything can happen. The track changes so fast, so if your car is not good, you're going to drop like a rock. I mean, there's 300 and something cars there, and I would say over half of them are pretty good cars. Some people just have bad luck, and just it's very competitive there. Unfortunately, one little mistake in your heat race can put you back the whole week. And I feel like sometimes, most of the time, the cream rises to the top. So you just got to be good and keep your nose clean and be there at the end. There's a lot of good guys there, and it seems like the same guys are always in the A main. So can't really have excuses to why you're not in the main event. But yeah, definitely can have some bad luck. You just gotta keep your nose clean, like I said.
And obviously, the risk factor of going out in the Chili Bowl is midgets are not very heavy when they're out on the track. They're pretty light cars. And I guess, as you put it, keeping your nose clean is kind of key because you watched the Tulsa shootout this past week and they had over 100 flips. In a Chili Bowl, it's pretty much the same thing. They're getting up there in the flip count. Let's not.
Yeah.
Let's hope you don't get in the flip count. But how crucial is it keeping your nose clean?
I mean, huge. I mean, unfortunately, you do get guys there that probably shouldn't be there, but it's part of it. Everyone's allowed to race, and you sometimes might have that guy in your heat race, and you just gotta use your best. Just put your best foot forward on. You judge a book by its cover. You know when to go and know when to not go. So yeah, you just got to be careful who you're around and know your surroundings, but at the same time, keep your nose clean. You have to be aggressive because heat races are only 8 laps there, and it's a small track, so it goes pretty fast. And if you're starting the back of the heat race, if you're not aggressive, you're going to run fifth, and you're going to be in the C main. So you just got to be, there's a fine line of being careful and aggressive at the same time.
And then a little bit about the atmosphere being in the expo center for that event. All the fans there and just the atmosphere of having over 300 cars there and some of the best, and all the drivers from all over the world come in to race that. What's it like as a driver getting to race it?
Yeah, there's only a few races that I've been a part of that where you really feel that wow factor, and you kind of get those goosebumps, and that would be Knoxville Nationals, Royal, and the Chili Bowl. When there's that many people there, definitely get your heart racing, and you feel the adrenaline a lot more. You want to put a show on for all the fans, but you definitely know that the stakes are a lot higher. But yeah, just the atmosphere is great. Everyone's into it. Everyone's there the whole week. A lot of alcohol's involved, so fans are a little bit more what, how should I say, it's into the race. They kind of speak their mind instead of being maybe a little hush hush sometimes without having a little bit of adult beverages in them.
That happens all the time for sure. What would it mean for you to win the Golden Driller up there?
I mean, that'd be huge. Never won a driller. Came close in the micro sprints. But yeah, I feel like the Chili Bowl is definitely a step above all the micro stuff. But I don't know what I'd do. I mean, I always wanted to win a crown jewel. I've always pictured myself winning a crown jewel in sprint cars at some point. But yeah, I mean, I would take a golden driller for sure. Not being a midget guy, but non-midget guys have run it before. Tim McCready.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Stewart won whenever he was running NASCAR stuff, but he still came from the midget stuff. And I came from midgets too, so I kind of have a history there. But yeah, it'd definitely be a dream come true.
Oh, for sure, I would have. That's any driver's dream is to win the Chili Bowl. It's like the Super Bowl, one of the Super Bowls of dirt track racing, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
but for the people that don't know, how did Parker Price Miller get introduced into racing?
I always played baseball. Um, so my dad actually was my baseball coach, and my grandpa helped coach, and my stepdad, he owned a business, and he actually sponsored a kid in micro sprints out here in Indiana, and they went and watched him one time, and I didn't even go. Actually, I think I had baseball practice or something, and my mom was like, "Oh, Parker could, maybe drive one of those." And I think the next week we bought a junior sprint and tried to go have some fun, and we've raced ever since. There for a while, I played baseball and raced at the same time. And then eventually I ended up, just racing. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into racing, and first generation driver.
And what did you start out racing in? Was it all micros, or were you racing like flat track karts and stuff like that?
Uh, yeah, it was just micro sprints. They call them junior sprints. It's a little like uh, is it Briggs Strat motor? I can't remember, but it's like a 3 horsepower engine. I ran those for like 2 months, and then I got into a restrictor 600, and then raced that. And that's what I started out in.
Nice. So racing micros, then making the step over to midgets, and then into the sprint car world. Transition. So you transition from micros into the midgets for a little bit, and then you transfer to the 360s and 410s. The transition from the micro sprints into a 410 or a midget, a little bit more power. What was that transition? How was that transition for you?
Yeah, so I raced micros. I started running micros. I actually started racing in 2010. Um, Raced in 2010, 11, and then I ran like 10 races in 2012, and then I actually didn't quit, but I instead of racing, I went and worked for Brady Bacon over the
Mhm.
summer for about a month, and um, worked with him. I think it was like I think it was pretty much my whole summer between my 8th grade and freshman year. And instead of getting paid, I worked for a roller. And because my dad's business wasn't really that great then, so we couldn't. I mean, we could afford it, but we took any we could, and worked for a roller. And then my dad bought uh, like I was like I think the engine was older than me for like 5 grand, which is really cheap for a 410 engine. And I went straight to 410 non sprint car racing from out of micros and raced the second half of 2012 in a sprint car. And then at the very end of 2012, I hopped into a midget. So I kind of like went ahead and then came back a little bit. And I think that might have helped me a little bit. So it kind of helped me slow down the things for a while. And yeah, the transition was a little bit, I was definitely different, just the power to weight ratio, the different tire sizes, just all of the different things that come with sprint car racing. I mean, in the micro, you're kind of like laying down, when you're sitting in it, sprint car, you're sitting upright, and just the pedals are different. So it was definitely a huge transition, but I think running a bigger car with more power helped me succeed in the midgets better. So I was kind of glad we did that.
Hmm. Now you race 410s, you race 360s. Now racing those, obviously 410s are one of the fastest cars in racing. For the people that don't know, because you're a driver that has the experience behind the wheel of both, the difference in the power between both, how much is it? I'm sure it's a lot. Obviously, the motors are completely different, but how much different is a 360 from a 410?
Yeah, I mean, on a dyno scale, it's about 200 horsepower. You know, a good 410 right now is around between 900 950, and a 360 is between you know 700 to 720. That's pretty good right now. So about 200 horsepower. Uh, but like as a feel on a smaller track, you can't feel it as much. I mean, you can definitely tell you don't have as much power. Feels a little bit slower, but on the big tracks is where you can really tell, like, man, we're going a lot slower here. Just kind of when you run 410s a lot and you hop into 360, you feel like you're almost not going slow motion, but you feel like you just have all the time in the world. And yeah, we don't really get to race 360s that much now just because we race so much 410 stuff. I think last year the only 360 race I did was the 360 Nationals, and that's just to get more laps for Knoxville and get ready for the Knoxville Nationals.
Of course. So racing 410s, you've raced with the World of Outlaws, you've raced with the All Star Circuit of Champions. What was your like first experience with both of those series?
Uh, Actually, my first USAC race, or my first weekend in the USAC with the USAC guys was a midget. We went out to Arizona, and I did all right. And then the following week we ran Turkey Night, and I actually broke the track record at Paris, and led I led quite a bit of laps of the Turkey Night Grand Prix that year. And then we ended up our battery went dead and didn't finish the race. But so I feel like I had a pretty good like debut for my first week with USAC, and then didn't really run much non-wing sprint car stuff with USAC. I ran a few shows like Lawrenceburg, a few shows at Kokomo. Nothing too special. Like made the race. Not sure where we finished. That was a long time ago. And then I actually made my Outlaw debut before I even made any of those, because back then when I started, the Outlaws didn't have an age limit. So I was 14 or 15 whenever I made my Outlaw debut at Lawrenceburg. And I remember following Donnie Schatz and Hot Laps. And, in a wing sprint car, when you're on a big track, they're very touchy. Like if you turn, they're going to turn really hard, just because they don't take much wheel input in a wing car, just because you have the, always the wing on top. And wing cars, you turn a lot more. And I remember following him, and he went to go around the top, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to run the top, follow him. And I turned to try and run the top, and I about hit the infield tires just because I wasn't used to it. And that was like my second wing race ever. But didn't make the show. I think we ran like eighth or ninth in the B, but had a lot of fun, and that was my Outlaw debut. And I'm not sure if I ran any more races that year or not. I can't remember.
Obviously, getting the race with the World of Outlaws. How exciting is that for you as a driver, getting a race with the World of Outlaws? You're not full time with them, but you race with them quite often. How is it getting to race with some of them guys and being a part of the World of Outlaws?
Yeah, I mean, I remember whenever I first got into racing, we'd go watch Outlaw races or watch them on TV and watch Kings Royal Knoxville Nationals. And I'm like, man, those guys are so cool. I'll never be there one day. Just thought it was like out of reach. And to be able to run Outlaw race was really awesome, just to be a part of the 4 wide and, run those races. And then to not only that, to win 2 Outlaw races has been special too. Never would I have thought that I would win an Outlaw race, let alone 2. So hopefully I can win some more. They're tough races to win. I believe when you win an Outlaw race, you're the best guy in the world that day, running sprint cars. You can't fake it. You can't do anything about it. I mean, it's the toughest thing I've done is race with the World Outlaws for sure.
No, when you won your World of Outlaw races, who were you racing for at the time?
The first time my first Outlaw win, it was like a what do you call it? Like a dual
deal?
team, kind of like I brought some cars and engines, and this guy brought a truck and trailer and some engines, and it was a number 2 car. His name was Justin Agee. Agee Farms was like kind of our main sponsor, but it was me, Braden McMahon, I was 17 at the time, I believe. Braden was 22, and my crew chief Levi, he was 19. So we've got to be pretty close for the lowest average age of an Outlaw win. And then the second time I won was with Jason Johnson, or it was actually Dietz Motorsports, but it was like a satellite team of Jason Johnson Racing. So I was teammates with David Gravel that year, and we actually should have won a lot more races that year, but we were leading one race at Knoxville and had some mechanical failure. And then there was other times where I kind of messed up on my own and spun out. And I remember biking up one time in Oklahoma. So probably should have had some more wins, but we were really fast that year with the 14.
Mm-hmm. So now to the more modern day, it was, it's definitely not an easy subject to talk about with anybody. It was broken last year in the news that you had a battle with cancer. And
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about that? And what was that like dealing with that and doing all the treatment and stuff for that while racing at the same time?
Yeah. So not many people know this. So February of 2019, we were on our way to Vegas, and I remember riding in the truck and trailer, and I'm like, man, I can barely walk. Like my ankle and my leg are killing me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to race. I can't even walk out of the truck. and I iced it the whole way there, and eventually it stopped hurting. So I'm like, oh, I must have just tweaked it, and I'll be fine. Well, then like 4 months go down the road, it starts hurting again. Same thing, and then it went away, and then it kind of hurt again like later on in the year. I went and got it checked out, got an X-ray, didn't see anything. My doctors didn't say anything, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what's wrong. And 2020 comes around and it starts hurting more frequent, like once a month or twice a month, and just got more and more painful and more frequent. So I'm like, there's definitely something wrong. And I went to a bone specialist in Indy, and he gave me an X-ray, and right away he saw like they call it a bone spur. Um, on my like the top of my ankle, like where my ankle and my foot meet, and scheduled surgery for November. Took the bone spur out, um, recovered, did all that stuff, and felt like it helps. I had no pain for a while. Um, thought I was, put that in my rearview mirror, and then 6 months later, about May comes around, the pain comes back. So I'm like, man, that's something's not right. So I went back to him, and I think August, I went back to him in August. I mean, it took me a while to go back. My mom's actually the one who made me go back. She's like, no, you got to go get this figured out. So thankfully she did. I went back in August and told him what I just told you, pretty much the same pain. And he's like, well, I can give you I think he said a MRI, or no, he said MRI. He said, we'll give you an MRI and see if I see anything else. And MRI showed that there was something in there. He's like, I don't really know what this is. I don't specialize in that. I'm going to send you to an oncologist specialist. And sent me to him. It did a CT scan, and he's like, yeah, you definitely have a tumor in your leg. To get a biopsy of it to figure out if it's cancerous. If not, he's like, I'm pretty sure it's non-cancerous. I forget the name for it, like non-benign or benign, I forget. But so did the biopsy, and did the biopsy in October actually, and the first one came back inconclusive. Couldn't get a good enough reading on it. So we did a second one. It took out a lot more bone and a lot more tissue, and actually got a good reading on that one, and came back and said that it was cancerous, but he's like, we couldn't really tell what kind of cancer it is, so we need to send it to the Mayo Clinic and IU Health, which is a hospital down in Indy. So they did some research, and I mean, it took a while. Probably, I got diagnosed in October that I had it, and usually you would start treatments about a month or so, or not even a month, probably a few weeks after that. I didn't start treatments until January because they couldn't figure out if I had lymphoma or leukemia, because it was in my bone and blood. So eventually they ended up saying, it's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and started chemo in January. And I didn't think I was going to be ready for Volusia, so I opted out of Volusia last year, and still went and watched. And I was down there. I'm like, man, I feel fine. Like I don't feel bad at all. Like the first 3 days of chemo were bad, but after the first week, I felt pretty normal. And I'm like, man, I can race. Can you pull up the backup car? We'll run East Bay. So I ran East Bay, and the second 2 treatments after that were a lot harder. But finished my chemo treatments in end of March, early April, and still continued to race. But whenever I was going through chemo, I was still running and working out to try and keep my stamina as high as I could, just because sprinter racing takes a lot out of you. I mean, you're going as hard as you can for 40 laps, and you got to be, it's already hard when you're in good shape, let alone bad shape. So it took a lot out of me. And then I started my radiation treatments in May and did 25 of those and finished in June. And I finally started feeling like I was 100% like around July, and then I broke my neck and back. So
Yeah.
I feel like just as soon as I was like getting to like my like peak performance, and we were actually getting really good. I mean, I feel like we actually had a really good shot at Knoxville, and then obviously what happened happens. But
Mhm.
so yeah, it was 2022 wasn't a great year, but still thankful for all the opportunities I had, and all the races that I did get to win and race in. So um, you know, I was, really bummed whenever all this happened. Like I stayed strong through all the cancer stuff and never broke down, never really showed sign of weakness. And then, I broke my neck and back, and it was just me and my mom sitting in the hospital room, and like I finally like just like broke down. I'm like, man, like what did I do wrong for this to be all happening to me?
Mhm.
And she was like, I get why you're upset, but like you got to be thankful for because at the time, like I first wrecked, I could not move my legs. I don't know, like I got out, but like there for a while, I couldn't feel or move them, and then it came back to me about an hour after I wrecked, and she's like, just be thankful that you can walk and move your
Mhm.
legs
Yeah.
instead of that being upset that you broke your neck and back. So I just kept looking at it like that whenever I got down. So yeah, luckily I'm still able to do things that I love, and that I'm not hurt worse.
Yeah. I tell you, that's quite the story there. Glad that everything is somewhat back to normal for you. I know I couldn't imagine going through the treatments and all that, and then right as you're feeling back to normal a little bit, you go and break your neck. Oh.
Yeah,
Um.
yeah,
So
it was hard.
now you were racing that number five car, right?
No, no, that
No,
was
no, that was not the number
2021.
five.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was racing the number 11 car for McGee's.
Okay, so I have this one. This was the one that you took in 2021. This was not. This was an ugly one. I'm
Yeah,
sure. I'm.
that was a good one too.
I'm sure you remember that one pretty well.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
what's actually funny, it's not funny, but that
Yeah.
wreck looks 10 times worse than the wreck that I broke my back in.
This is the one that. Yeah. This.
Yeah, there it is right there.
You're
So
over
you
in
can
here. You vaguely see it, but you're over
yeah,
here.
so you can see if you rewind it a little bit.
I'll,
I'll
I'll
show
slow it
you like
down
what.
too. I'll slow it down here too, so we can play back the speed up. Slow it down to 0.5. Um. Okay, so now it's slowed down. You're right here entering. You're already flipping. What do you remember about
So
this?
that guy flips. So that's me right there. I'm like coming down. You can see my car's like right there. It
Right
slams.
there. Yeah.
So no, I'm the guy that's landed on all four.
Oh, that's you.
So so take your mouse.
So that's. Oh, so you're the one that like you barely flipped. You kind of like
Yeah, I
just
did.
hit. You hit
I,
him
yeah, I
as he
didn't
was
even
coming.
flip the car. You can see my car come down, and like
Hmm.
it lands like on the rear wheels really hard, like perfectly even, and that's what broke right there. That's what broke my back and neck.
Now, what do you remember about that?
I remember all of it. So I went on turn one, and JJ Hickle, he's the one who wrecked really hard,
Yeah.
and I just had nowhere to go, and it's not his fault. Like people wreck, it just
Hmm.
happens. And I just had nowhere to go, and it like pivoted perfectly on my right front, and like barely hit him, and it like spun me around, and I could feel myself coming down. And I'm like, oh no, this is gonna hurt, and I like braced for it, and when I landed, I immediately like lost like all my feel, like everything went numb and like tingly, and it scared me. So I got out. I don't know how. I got out, and when I went to go stand up, like my legs just gave out, and I should not have gotten out. If there's any kids or people listening that race, if you feel like you're hurt, do not get out because you can injure yourself way more. So
Hmm.
luckily I didn't. But yeah, so I when I wrecked, I'm like, man, I can get back out, and then I landed. I'm like, I'm not getting back out, and I knew my back was broken because it hurt. I didn't know my neck was broken, but whenever I got to the hospital, they're like, he had a really bad crash, high rate of speed, multiple flips. I'm like, no, that was the other guy. Like I
Hmm.
barely tipped over to get me an X-ray of my back and get me to Des Moines because Knoxville, you're in the middle of nowhere, and hopefully I don't offend anyone, but it's not the greatest hospital to be in for, a traumatic injury like that. So I was like, you need to get me to a trauma hospital now. And they still made me do the head scans and the body scans to make sure I had no internal bleeding because they thought I had a high rate of speed crash, which, I was racing, but my wreck wasn't that bad. So sure enough, the scans came back good, but my x-rays came back that I broke my T5 and broke C7. So like, all right, we need to rush you to Des Moines. I'm like, yeah, I told you that 4 hours ago. So got rushed to Des Moines, and I wrecked at like 11:30 is I think, or 11:30 or midnight, and I didn't get to Des Moines until like 6 a.m. So it was a long time.
Yeah, I can't relate to the broken neck and broken back part, but I can relate to the hospital being transferred and all that. It's not easy because I had it happen to me back in May. Another
Yeah,
story, not a story, long story, but I had ended up collapsing my lung and was in the ER for a week, and that was not fun. So I can tell you that.
oh yeah,
But I couldn't imagine breaking your neck. But and like you said, looking at the wreck, it really didn't look like a bad wreck. Like it looks like a normal Tommy tip over that would happen it happens all the time. But it just shows you
yeah.
the dangerous part of racing. And luckily, you're able to still race now, and we're able to get away from that. Get away, be okay after that.
Yeah, like a lot of fans, like they kind of like, oh, he landed on his wheels, like he's fine. Like I would much rather land upside down than land on my wheels, just because when you land like that, it allows for your back to try and collapse. Like you would rather in a wing car definitely land upside down, just because the wing can use as a crutch and soften your landing. But when you land upside down, or like when you land on all four, your shocks can give out and your frame will hit the ground, and basically the only thing that's holding you up is your spine. So, and that's what happened to me. My spine just collapsed because I couldn't take that much force.
Mm-hmm. So now jumping into, so we're still on the topic of Knoxville. We're getting away from the injury part because it's not. We don't want to keep talking about that. But you made a start with the NASCAR Truck Series, Jordan Anderson.
Yeah,
How was that? What was that like? I'm sure that was pretty
it
cool.
was definitely it was definitely a lot of fun. Getting the whole experience. Like I got to fly down to Charlotte and do a seat pour and hang out with all the NASCAR teams, and see around Charlotte and get a more in-depth look at a NASCAR team was pretty cool. And then just the whole race day feel was a something that I'll never forget for sure. I can't lie. I mean, the racing part of it was a lot more boring than what we get to race. Um, but I feel like the dirt races, aren't you're definitely not going as fast as what a normal NASCAR race would be. So
Mhm.
I got to take that into perspective too. I would like to try like and do like Bristol pavement race or like Daytona, just to like
I've done that.
get like an actual.
I've
Yeah,
I've I've done
I would.
The Richard Petty experience with Stuart Friesen. I was not driving, but I've been in a car at Daytona.
Yeah,
It's fun.
what at Daytona?
Hmm.
At Daytona?
Yeah, at Daytona, it was fun.
Wow.
Oh my god. I
Bec-
mean, you're in the corners. It's definitely not a dirt. It's definitely not a dirt track experience. You're in the corners, and your entire body is leaning this way, like you feel like you're gonna tip over.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
yeah, and like just the like back to like the truck stuff, like the cars are just so much heavier and not as much horsepower, so like it's really lazy. And I struggled to practice day like figuring it out, but I felt like we actually had a good shot at having a good run. And I was up to like eighth, and then I kind of just missed the bottom a little bit, and it was so bottom dominant that once you moved off the bottom, you were getting pretty much freight trained. And I tried getting down to close my gap up, and my spotter was like, stay high," and I like got just a little too low, and like I forget who it was, got into my quarter panel and spun me out, and kind of ruined our race for us. But yeah, it was something I'll do again for sure. I still talk to Jordan and the team quite a bit, and I know we've talked about maybe doing it again sometime. So I'll have to see. I really, oh yeah, I spun around practice day.
Yeah, and I thought you almost went over. You hit that. You were about going for a ride on that.
I think I was like, practice is like an hour and a half long. So it was pretty,
Slick.
it was pretty quick into practice. But yeah, very, like sprint cars, like you can like overcorrect and,
Hmm.
save that. These things that are just so heavy that once you get a little bit sideways, it's like, it's game over. You're not saving it.
Hmm. So, so comparing a NASCAR truck to a sprint car, I'm sure there's a lot of differences, but for you driving both, what were the key differences from both machines?
Well, for one, in a sprint car, we sit in the middle pretty much. So
Hmm.
like my right rear is, I'm pretty much sitting on my right rear. Like I don't have to worry about it being way out there. And a truck, you got a lot of more room on your right side. So I had to take that into consideration. And then, the tires are narrower, so you don't have as much grip. Cars are heavier, less engine or, less horsepower. So a lot less downforce. So I had a lot to learn really. And especially on dirt, the dirt guy, like it's just way different for them. Like a lot of the pavement guys, they struggle too, just because they don't know how to keep the throttle control. And that's one thing. Like in a sprint car, you can like hear your throttle control a lot easier, just because we don't run mufflers that much, or even when we do, they're still pretty loud. So you can hear the engine really well. Those things, it's really muffled, so like it's hard to like really hear your engine when it spikes up in RPMs. And yeah, just a whole different learning curve for me. But I felt like I got the hang of it. Like I said, we were really good. Just unfortunate that they just lack of experience, of missing the bottom, and then not listening to my spotter good enough. And that's the first time I ever had a spotter, so I was new to that the whole time.
Hmm. For sure, for sure. So yeah, you got to do Knoxville, and then more recently you did a couple late model races.
Yeah,
Are you planning on doing a little bit more of that this year?
yeah. We're going to run sprint cars and late models. Definitely more sprint car stuff, just because I am a sprint car guy, but would like to try and get 25 late model races in if I could. Yeah, that thing is probably one of the most fun vehicles I've driven. Just I shouldn't say vehicles, I should say race cars. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, they're a blast. They're so much different. I struggled a lot. We went and practiced uh, before Charlotte, and man, I was I'm like, man, maybe we should not go to Charlotte, because I couldn't even make a lap around the racetrack without pushing across the racetrack. And I'm like, I don't want to go there and ruin someone else's race. And eventually, throughout the night, I finally ended up getting the hang of it. And it helped that I had McCready there and Davenport were there helping me. Rumley, who works on Larson's car, was
Hmm.
there helping me also. So it helped the transition become a lot easier. And then we actually went to Charlotte the next day, and we were like fifth quick, which I was not expecting. And running a wing car, I'm used to like dirty air and like turbulent air, racing behind people with the wings and stuff. And they're like, be careful in this heat race. Like the turbulent air is going to get you if you don't beat them to turn one. And I'm like, oh, I like didn't say it, but in my head, I'm like, oh, I've raced turbulent air before. Like I struggle with it. And I went to turn one, and I was right in his quarter panel, and his spoiler, threw me in dirty air, and it's way worse than sprint cars with the dirty air. I shouldn't say way worse; it's way different. And yeah, I wasn't used to it. With sprint cars, you're on a lot of brake pedal, even when it's like fast, just to help you keep lay left. So I kept on having that habit of using the brake a lot, and it was just unloading the car, making it harder to drive. So I made a lot of gains. Definitely not good at it still, but uh, we went and tested at Kokomo when I got back from Charlotte, and actually made a lot of gains and was really good at Kokomo. So there's two XR races at Kokomo this year, and we plan on running both of those. So excited for that.
For sure. All right, these two questions I like to ask in every podcast. It's kind of it's gonna make you think here a little bit. All right, here's the first one. If you could race against any driver, past or present, any series, any division, who would it be? Which car are you racing, and which track are you racing at?
Um, it's a good question. Let me think here. Probably like Jack Hewitt. Um, Jack Hewitt at Eldora probably in a wing sprint car. I feel like uh, Jack Hewitt's like one of
Icons.
the guys that one of the guys that race sprint cars that
Hmm.
I got to race against Steve Kinzer, got to race against Sammy, Donnie. I feel like those are a few of the goats of our sport. Actually, I'd say Jack Hewitt or Rick Ferkel. Rick Ferkel's like my hero. That was my first ever crew chief, and he was like one of the original outlaws. So I would have to say like Rick Ferkel, like Fremont. Me and Rick won our first ever. I won my first ever 410 sprint car race at Fremont, which is actually where Rick was kind of from at the time,
Hmm.
and he grew up in Ohio. So that'd be pretty cool too, is to race against Rick at Fremont.
All right. If there was a racing Mount Rushmore, who are the four names?
Racing Mount Rushmore.
All right,
Uh,
for you, I'll let you do dirt sprint car, wingless sprint car, because it's more
yeah,
your background.
yeah. I mean, if we're talking like all racing aspects, I feel like Dale Earnhardt has to be up there.
Hmm.
But my top four, like my Mount Rushmore for sprint cars would be, I have to say, Doug Wolfgang, Steve
Hmm.
Kinzer, Donnie Schatz, and Kyle Larson.
Wow, like, you and Johnny Gibson are almost like the same answers. The only one he added in, he didn't have Larson in there, and he had Steve's brother Craig Kinzer, not Craig Kinzer. What's his brother's name?
Mark,
Mark.
Mark.
Mark Kinzer.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's who. That's who.
yeah. So like,
When I had Gibson on a couple weeks ago, that's who he had. Was those
yeah.
three,
I
and
mean,
then Mark
like,
Kinzer.
yeah, he's definitely. I mean, honestly, he's tradable for any of those guys. Really, I mean, I forget about Mark just because he quit so early in his career.
Hmm.
I mean, he won a lot of races though, a lot of big races for the amount of time that he raced. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that belong on that Mount
Hmm.
Rushmore, but that's my four. I mean, I might be a little biased to Larson just because I see him race every weekend, and I
You've
mean,
raced with
he's
him.
the best guy I've yeah, he's the best guy I've ever raced against. The things that he can do in a race car are unreal.
Well, Parker, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Before we let you go, is there anything you want to know about the channel or me, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about it, but I'll definitely be tuning in to watch more often now. And even though that I'm not going to be on it every time, I'll still watch and pay attention. But yeah, appreciate you having me. And where are you from? Actually, are you from New York, right?
I am from upstate New York. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what tracks are like near you?
So I announce at one. It's a smaller track. It's called Glenridge Motorsports Park. It's pretty small.
Okay.
The most well known track, and this is not. I'm not trying to be biased. Not most well known, but the one that's closest to me that would be you would probably know is Fonda Speedway.
What
Fonda,
is
New
it?
York. Fonda.
Oh, Fonda. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Never.
Lebanon Valley's like an hour from me, which they've had 410 races there in the
Yeah.
past. So,
I never raced there either. I've been to in New York. I've been to Weed Sport. I've been
hmm.
to Outlaw.
Outlaw.
One
Yep.
at Ransomville
Dundee.
last.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then
and
Ransomville.
then State Line. Not a fan of State Line.
I believe they just sold that place. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm thinking of another track, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting track for sure.
yeah.
Um,
It's not a bad track. It doesn't. It seems like it doesn't really suit my style, I guess. And I've kind of always struggled there. I remember I've only raced there twice, and both times I've left there, I've said both times they just need to fill this place up with water and put fish in it.
jeez. Well, it's I hope the promoter of State Line is not listening to this.
No,
Because that's not a good. That
no,
probably wouldn't be. He wouldn't be
it's nothing
he wouldn't be happy
nothing
with me.
against. No, it's not against the racetrack. we go there. It's actually a nice place. It just I suck there. That's why I say it. Not nothing against the racetrack.
So you got the race. You raced Weedsport. Definitely a unique racetrack. Beautiful facility.
Yeah,
What's your
yeah,
what's your thought
yeah.
on that place?
I feel like all New York tracks have like a unique vibe to them. I don't know why that is. But yeah, Weed Sport is definitely tricky. I crashed really hard there in qualifying. The turn 1, 2 got me. Comes back at you. But we were good there in the feature. We started like 20th because we crashed in qualifying, like I said. Started 20th and ran like 5th. That's the only time I've ever been there. But yeah, I enjoyed up there. It gets slick. It's racy. I feel like all New York tracks get pretty racy just because they have that slick dirt that never takes rubber. So you kind of find out whose car is the best and who can throttle the best.
Mhm. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on. A couple things here. Again, I got to plug our sponsor, Swagger Factory Apparel, and Parts Companies LLC. A little bit of news for you for people that are watching. My first race for 2022. I'm actually pretty excited about it. It's going to be the 2 weeks of the Dirt Car Nationals down in Volusia. So I don't know if Park, are you planning to race that?
Yeah, I'll be at. Are you going for the big block modifieds?
I'm gonna be there both weeks. I'll be there from the night you guys
Okay.
start to the right up to
Yeah,
Daytona. Yeah.
yeah. I'll
So
be there.
all
So
right, I'll make sure I'll definitely come meet up with you for sure. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'll let you give out any shout outs you want to give to sponsors, anybody you want to give a shout out to. It's all yours.
Yeah. I mean, just chalk stick Schroeder. That's kind of really only our sponsors right now, which is like my own business. So we sell torsion bars for sprint cars, micro sprints, midgets, big blocks, pretty much anything that needs a torsion bar or any type of drive shaft we make. So if you need any of those things, you can find us on Twitter, Google, all that stuff, and our phone number is attached to all of them. So yeah, anytime you need that any of those things, we can get you helped out. But other than that, I don't really have any other people to thank besides you for having me on here, and we'll see you in February.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look forward to it. One more thing. Your social medias, what are they?
So Facebook, Parker Price Miller, and then I think it's my Instagram too, Parker Price Miller. And then my Twitter is Parker_PM9, and then that's about the only social media that I really use. I am on TikTok, but it's kind of just for me to watch. I don't post that much stuff on there.
Yeah. Well, we're the complete opposites, and I'm probably gonna have to have you on one of my TikToks when we get down to Florida.
I am having a video guy this year, so he's probably gonna post some more TikTok stuff.
All right. Well, I'll definitely be. I'll have to get you in my TikToks. I got couple thousand. I'm close to 5,000 followers or something like that. So my videos they're kind of funny. And you're gonna be now. I guess I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do with you. I walk up to a driver and I simply ask them what their random thought of the day is, and it's usually very random and funny. Where I went to BAPS last month for the first time ever, beautiful raceway course, and Alex Bowman was there, racing. Not last month, it was a couple months ago. Alex Bowman was racing there, so I was like, I'm gonna try to get him on it because I think it'd be funny having a NASCAR driver do it. And I asked him, and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, my random thought is that sprint car racing is a lot harder than they say it is." And
Yeah,
it got like 14,000 likes or whatever. It blew up, and I was like, "Oh my God, I guess I got to keep this thing going."
he's not
And
wrong.
well, I'm sure he's not. But yeah, no. So we'll have to look forward to the Parker Price Miller TikTok then, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Stay tuned.
All right. Well, everybody tuning in on Facebook, I appreciate you all for tuning in. This has been another Out of the Fast Lane podcast live for you guys on Facebook. And again, I'll be hopefully having another podcast next week. I'm trying to keep it weekly until racing starts. And then, of course, you're going to want to head over to YouTube and start checking out all the live at track interviews and everything like that. Um, Either next week, we're going to have ARCA Menard Series driver Ryan Roulette coming on the show or Carson Macedo. So stay tuned for that. And that's all I got for all you live viewers. I appreciate you all coming on. And we're going to head off the live stream now. Again, thank you, Parker, for coming on, and
Yep.
we'll finish out the YouTube here. But other than that, Facebook, have a good night.
All right. Thanks,
All
man.
right, so we're still
Oh,
recording for YouTube. It's
oh,
okay.
okay.
We're still recording for YouTube, but this has been another Out of the Fast Lane podcast. My name is Brady Hauser. This is Parker Bryce Miller, driver of the 410 Sprint car, number 11, right? If I'm right.
Well,
You drove a lot of different cars.
yeah, number 11, but this year I'm number 9. 9P is like my original numbers, so that's what I'm going back to this year. So I drove for number 11 last year with a different team. So this year I'm kind of running for myself. I had some stuff was gonna like happen
Mhm.
with other teams, didn't work out, so resorted to build my own stuff, and luckily I got the same crew chief and team as I did last year, just a different owner. So
And I almost forgot to ask. I forgot to ask out on the live, but we're still on YouTube recording. Um, what is your 2023 plans?
just honestly just race as much as I can. Sprint cars, late models, World of Outlaws, All Stars, the
Mhm.
new High Limit series, pretty much anything that like we want to go do.
All right. That sounds good to me and sounds good to all the fans. Make sure you check out Parker when he's at the racetracks. Make sure you go say hello and don't mention me. I'm joking. But yeah, this has been another Out of the Fast Lane podcast. Parker, I'm looking forward to meeting you in February. I'll keep you on here after this video. But other than that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and click that little notification bell in the bottom corner when you subscribe. You will not miss an upload. Every time I upload, that notification bell will let you know that I have just posted a video. And of course, when 2023 starts, which it is started, it's the 4th of January. Um, it's gonna be busy. Again, doing being down there for Volusia for the 2 weeks. I can't wait. I'm sure I'll be doing a lot of interviews and probably a Nat Track interview with Parker, which would be pretty cool. And other than that, yeah, I appreciate you all tuning into the episode. And remember, support those who support racing, and make sure we keep our thoughts and prayers for the Damar Hamlin family and the Buffalo Bills organization. Is I watched that on Monday, and it was not easy to watch. So our thoughts and prayers are with him, and hopefully he makes a speedy recovery very soon. But other than that, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of the Out of the Fast Lane podcast, and we'll be back in the next one. So long.